Hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. After 15 plus years of struggling with my health, I finally figured out what was wrong with me. So I've talked about my health journey a little bit over, snippets of podcast episodes and things like that, but I really wanted to do a deep dive because I see so many people being open about their health journeys and how positively it can help and shape other women's perceptions as well. And I wanted to help contribute to women becoming more and more informed and learning about what's wrong, because I wish someone had told me what I now know 15 years ago. I think it would have changed a lot of things for me. So I've had a lot of health issues recently, and I sort of alluded to it, but didn't go into great detail about it. But over, the winter time and all last year, I was feeling really down. I was feeling depressive. I was feeling sad. I had low energy. I didn't really have any creativity left in me. And especially when I have my own business, that can be really challenging. And it was really affecting me. And not just that, but I had a lot of other intense physical symptoms that were really negative and that were really affecting me in a negative way. But before we kind of get into the now, I think it would be good to kind of go back and start at the beginning, just so I can give kind of a full picture on what really happened and how did I get to this place now. So the first health issue that I really had was when I was 5. I got really sick. Now, I don't really remember this too much, but it's quite important to my story. So I was quite sick and I ended up being diagnosed, or they told me that I was intolerant to dairy. So I stopped eating dairy for a few months, and then my mom tells me that, after a few months I started eating it again and I was totally fine. And this didn't really come out again until later, but it's interesting that even at a young age, this was an issue. And I remember throughout my teens, 10, 12, I remember having stomach aches all the time. And at this point, I wasn't allergic to anything. I didn't have any intolerances as far as I knew. I was eating everything. My mom cooked food every day, and so that's what I was eating. But I remember so many times I would have stomach aches, specifically when we had pasta sauces or things like that. I just always remember. And I was 21 at the time. I was still living at home. I was in my last year of college, and I remember every morning for breakfast I would have Greek yogurt, and I love that with some granola, nuts, whatever. And I just felt bloated every time. I felt like my stomach hurt. I felt like I wasn't feeling good, but then I would eat other dairy products and I would be fine. So I didn't really understand the correlation, but I stopped eating Greek yogurt in the morning and that kind of solved the issue. And then when I was 22, I moved to Hungary. I moved back to Budapest after college, and I remember everyone was talking about being lactose intolerant, and I literally didn't know what that was. I was like, what is lactose intolerance? And mind you, at this time, my stomach was hurting more and more. I realized that, maybe it was a dairy issue because it happened when I had dairy. And so I was hearing everyone being lactose intolerant. So I was like, well, I'm sure I'm lactose intolerant. So I stopped eating lactose, and I did feel better, but I didn't feel 100%. So finally, I decided to go get a lactose test. With the lactose test, you have to drink this liquid, and then you sit there, I think, for 2 or 3 hours, and then every 30, 60 minutes, you have to blow into this thing and they measure your levels. And obviously the higher you are, the more intolerant you are. By the end, my test came back at a 5. Okay, that was my highest, which is super low. That's super low, which meant that I wasn't lactose intolerant. So I was pissed because I was like, okay, if I'm not lactose intolerant, then what the heck is my problem? And I went back to my doctor afterwards and they were like, yeah, so you're not lactose intolerant. Probably means based on your symptoms that you're dairy intolerant. So stop eating dairy. So I have not had dairy for over 9 years now. I miss it every day. And then in the meantime, kind of going back to my teen years, I've had a lot of weight fluctuations as well. So when I was 16, I gained a lot of weight, I think about 20 pounds in a short amount of time, which was a lot. Like, I'm not super tall. I'm just under 5'7". So yeah, it was noticeable. It was obvious, but I was also playing competitive sports at the time. I was very, very athletic. I was very fast, very strong. I was at practice every single day of the week, sometimes 2 practices a day if I had overlapping sports. I was doing the most. And yet I was still gaining weight, and I had gained, a good amount of weight when I was 16. I went to a trainer who I worked with. He was super impressed with me, said how fit I was, super strong. I lost a great deal of body fat percentage, but I wasn't really losing any weight, probably because I was gaining a lot of muscle. But I just had these fluctuations. And then besides that, and this is something I've talked about, is I was teased a lot for my weight, especially during my weight gain at 16 and then losing the weight again later on, which I'll get to. But half my family is European, and in Europe, it's normal to talk about people's weight, especially here in Hungary. Commenting on someone else's weight is totally normal, which I think is just beyond. Like, I would never comment on someone's weight, even if they look thin, because that's the other end of the spectrum. And also it just, it's very much in the patriarchy of keeping women focused on their weight, making them feel like they need to be skinny, working on it. But that's a whole other conversation. But of course, at 16, all I heard was, oh, you're fat, you're ugly. That's what my mind interpreted, and you're not worthy, right? And so this caused a lot of trauma for me. This was a lot of things that I had to unpack later in therapy when I went, is this idea that my weight doesn't have to do with my worth. And this was something that I really, really struggled with, something that was extremely hard for me to deal with. I mean, I'm talking sitting senior year, whenever it was junior year in my English class, and I sat at a desk that was next to this, like, I don't even know what it was, but it was this reflective surface where you could kind of see yourself. And I remember every single day in class, I would sit there and I would look at my stomach and be like, okay, is it flat? Is it bulging? Literally every single day. When I was in my 20s and I lost the weight, I was counting calories obsessively. And if I had even a little bit over calories, I would feel panicked. I would feel stressed. I would feel so unworthy. So this had gone on for many, many years, this back and forth. And I just looked in the mirror and I hated myself. I literally looked at myself and I was like, I hate my body. I'm ugly. Why can't I be thinner? Why can't I lose weight? It was a constant stress that I had, of just negativity, hating myself, restrictive eating, gaining the weight. And it just wasn't something that was sustainable and wasn't something that was going to work. So when I was 16, I had gained this weight. And then when I started college, I think around 18 or 19, I ended up losing all the weight, not on purpose. I ended up, looking back now, I was intermittent fasting. I just wasn't eating that much. I was working out a lot, and that's why the weight came off. And everyone was telling me that, oh, you look so great. Oh, this looks so much better on you, right? And so I was getting that positive reinforcement that yeah, I'm worthy now because I'm quote unquote thin. And even then when I looked in the mirror, I remember thinking that I was fat, right? That it was just, the worst. And I just really had such a bad relationship with my body, and I worked really hard to get to a place where I am today where I actually love my body. But, currently right now, I'm in the largest body that I've ever been in, but I love my body the most I've ever loved it. I'm so appreciative of her. I'm so caring and loving towards her. And yeah, do I want to be my healthiest self? Yes, but it's not about the weight on the scale for me. It's about feeling energetic, feeling strong, being able to go to the gym and run or do what I want to do, or feeling like I have stamina and all those things. Having energy to go to the gym every day, not feeling like I'm carrying weight that isn't supposed to be there. And, I do think there's a lot of trauma weight as well. I believe in that, and something I've explored as well. But just in general, it's not about the weight for me. It's about how I feel. And, coming to the last few years, I've just really felt off. And in 2021, I ended up again gaining about 20 pounds, basically out of nowhere in the span of like 2 months. And I didn't really change anything in my diet. This was when I had met my now husband. We met back then. Like, yeah, I had some snacks now and again. Yeah, I had a beer now and again, but it wasn't anything crazy. I wasn't working out less. I wasn't sleeping less. Like, I wasn't doing anything differently. Obviously, now looking back, I had a lot of emotional things that were going on in my life, which probably had to do with it. But when you're in it, you don't know. And so in 2022, I started working with a dietitian who specializes in hormones for women. I didn't get any blood work done, which looking back, I probably should have, because maybe we could have had more answers. But the way that she framed, working with her was going to coincide with women's hormones and how they work. And I ended up losing about like 7 kilos when I worked with her. In pounds, that's like 15 maybe or more. So it was technically successful, but I did feel like it was a little bit restricting. Like, it was gluten-free, obviously sugar-free and dairy-free, which was fine. I don't really eat a lot of sweets. I'm dairy-free anyways. I felt, dinner time was like the smallest amount of food, which, in European culture, that's normal, that like lunch is your big meal and dinner is your small meal. But for me, as someone who, A, I grew up in American culture where dinner was our biggest meal, and B, I have a husband who comes home late, and so dinner is the meal we get to eat together. It just wasn't something that was a part of my life. And after I worked with her, even though I felt so great, I ended up gaining the weight back. I wasn't focused. I wasn't sticking to the diet that she laid out with me, and it wasn't something that I felt was working. And flash forward to last year, I remember we went to Miami in April. It was my birthday. And I remember looking at pictures of myself, and even just when I was in Miami, it wasn't the weight, but I just felt so inflamed in my body. Like, when you have like excess water weight, you feel inflamed. Like, I just felt so uncomfortable in my body, and I was like, something needs to change. Something has to change. So I did a lot of research. I looked online and I looked to see like, okay, what are those things that cause the most inflammation and what can I take out? And I just had like this, I didn't know, or I didn't think I would be gluten tolerant, but I just decided like, I'm just going to go gluten free. So I ended up doing like a couple months during the summer last year. After I got back, I did gluten free, obviously dairy free because I don't have dairy. I was super strict on no sugar, and I tried to just eat whole foods that I made at home. And I did feel better. I did feel like the inflammation went down, but I was still having like issues. My blood sugar issues were so bad, and like, this is something I didn't mention, but I've always had blood sugar issues. So even when I was like a kid, a teen, like I had to eat every 4 to 5 hours. My blood sugar would drop. If I didn't have the right amount of protein and fat with my carbs, like my blood sugar would tank, and that came with me feeling lightheaded. My hands would shake really bad. Like, I would feel really physically bad. And that's been all my life. And, doctors have thought, even my mom, like we went to the doctor, thought maybe, oh, you're diabetic or you have something. No, I was never diabetic, like nothing like that. And no one could tell me what the issue was. It was just like, oh, well, your grandma also had a similar issue, so it must be the case as well for you. Great, but that still didn't help me. So at this time last year, I felt way less inflamed, but I felt like my blood sugar issues were almost worse. And over the summer, I got such bad symptoms that were absolutely insane that I've never had before. So I had really bad acne on my neck, which I have never had. And like, I don't have a lot of acne now anyways. I did when I was a teen, but thank God, like I don't. But I had horrible acne, and it was just on my neck. It was so painful. I had zero libido. Like, my libido was actually in the ground. I had no interest in being intimate with my husband, which obviously, like when you're married or in a relationship, that's super shitty to go through. That's something that's really hard, and that was obviously challenging on our relationship as well. He was great about it though, so I can't complain. My hair was falling out. Like, literally I would shower and like chunks of my hair would fall out, which I have never had happen before, and I didn't understand. I felt exhausted all the time, even though I was sleeping enough, even though I was doing all the things. I felt actually exhausted. My blood sugar levels would just tank all the time. Like, I remember every morning I would have eggs, I would have bacon, I would have like, a tortilla or whole wheat or, veggies, things like that. And then after like 2 or 3 hours, my blood sugar would just absolutely tank, even though I was getting 30 plus grams of protein, right? And at first, with all these health issues, I thought it was stress because I unfortunately lost my grandma last year. 2 years before that, I lost my grandpa. So it was a very, very stressful time in my life. And last year, before she passed, I spent so much time at the hospital. I was with her every single day. Like, it was extremely stressful. So I just thought I was grieving. I thought I was sad. I thought that I was going through this mourning period. So I did a bunch of research and because these symptoms were so bad, I didn't know who to go to, and I didn't want to go to a doctor and spend a bunch of money and not get answers. So I was like, I'm just going to do a bunch of research and I'm going to see what supplements can help me, basically. So what I did is I looked online, I did all the things, and I had taken supplements before when I worked with my dietitian too, like she recommended things. So based on my experience with that, based on the research that I did, I started taking a bunch of supplements. So, and this is just for me to tell you guys, obviously I'm not a doctor, so look into this yourselves, but this is what I started taking. So I was taking omega-3, I was taking a B vitamin, a D vitamin, a C vitamin. I was taking biotin, which is good for hair and nails. I was like hoping it would have my hair grow back. And I was taking magnesium. I've always taken magnesium. And I started taking zinc as well. I think that was it. So I was taking those. And basically around like September, I started feeling a lot better. And those symptoms had generally gone away. I still wasn't feeling 100%. But the symptoms around like September, October had gone away. And in September, I went to my gynecologist for my yearly appointment, my yearly checkup. And he said to me, like, based on your symptoms, you should get a thyroid test. So I just went and did a blood panel, looked at my thyroid. It looked okay. There was no issues. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go back to the doctor. I'm feeling better, even though I'm not 100%. But I'm just going to keep taking supplements and see how it goes. Towards the end of the year, I just got so frustrated that I was feeling down, like my blood sugar. I was feeling tired all the time. And I was like, I can't live life like this. Like, I felt so depressed, so down. I was like, I cannot live life like this. So I did, again, a bunch of research, as I always do. And I learned about insulin resistance and PCOS. And like PCOS, I'd always heard of, like so many girlies have it, PCOS. And I thought maybe I would have PCOS because I did have quite painful ovulation. But I learned about insulin resistance in relation to PCOS. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I have PCOS and insulin resistance. So I looked it up that you could get a glucose test like women get when they're pregnant, where you drink the glucose and then they check your insulin levels. So I could go get that and we could determine if there was like an issue or not. So I went and got the test, and it turns out that my insulin levels were high. So you get a blood test to see your like starting insulin. You drink the drink. Then you get a blood test at 60 minutes and 120 minutes, so 2 hours. And at 60 minutes, it was higher than it should be. At 120 minutes, it was higher than it should be. And then when I got home, which was about almost 3 hours, my blood sugar completely tanked, which I knew it would. Like, I was prepared. I had just gotten home from the lab because you had to be there the whole time. I was literally making my protein shake because that was the first thing I wanted to eat, something with high protein afterwards. And all of a sudden, my hands, like literally, if you're watching this, like this is how they were shaking. It was so bad. And I remember I came and sat on the couch and I was like, okay, it's going to be fine. I drank my drink and like in 20 minutes, I was feeling so much better. But it was kind of scary. And for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to read the definition of insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is a condition where the body's cells become less responsive to insulin, a hormone that helps regulate blood sugar levels. Normally, insulin helps glucose enter cells where it's used for energy. However, if you have insulin resistance, the cells don't respond as effectively, causing the body to require more insulin to help glucose. So basically, your pancreas works harder to produce and release more insulin to compensate for the reduced effectiveness, and this can lead to higher levels of insulin in the blood and elevated blood sugar levels. And this can increase your risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and health issues. So I was like, okay, now that I have an answer, what do I do about this? So I ended up, again, doing more research, and I found a Facebook group here in Hungary, which was basically like a PCOS, insulin resistance, like a group for women who are trying to get pregnant with these roles. And like, I'm not trying to get pregnant, but like, I thought that it would be really helpful. And it was so helpful. There was like 18,000 women in this group. And I did a bunch of research in the group, and I found an endocrinologist that they had recommended, that like multiple people had gone to and said she was amazing. So I was like, great. So I made an appointment for the beginning of February. And then when I made the appointment, they told me to get all these labs done on top of the glucose test. So I got all these labs done, and I went to her. It was a 60-minute session. Okay, I don't think I've ever had 60 minutes with a doctor. And that's why I went to her, because I knew it would be 60 minutes and that she was thorough and all the things, because I was tired of being told, so many doctors had told me, like, I remember my male gynecologist, another one I had, when I told him my symptoms, like way before, he was like, well, just eat vegetables and protein and do cardio. And I'm like, are you actually for real that you're telling me to do that when you haven't asked me one single question about myself? Actually infuriating. And gotten so much like bad advice, and people kept just telling me over the years, like, oh, just eat less, you're not in a calorie deficit, you're doing all these things. And I'm like, I'm literally doing everything. I'm the pinnacle of health. I don't drink alcohol, I don't have sugar or dairy, I limit my gluten, I eat 3 square meals a day, I cook every single day, I eat whole foods mainly, don't eat snacks, I don't drink coffee, I don't have tea or juices or anything, I only have water, I work out or exercise 4 to 5 times a week, I sleep 8 hours, I meditate. Like, literally, it's so frustrating when you think you're doing everything you can, and my life just revolved around this, and I felt like nothing was working. So I went to this doctor, and it was the best consultation. She was so empathetic, so kind, so helpful, and she told me that I most likely, based on this, have insulin resistance. And so what do we do with insulin resistance? I love that she didn't tell me to diet. She didn't tell me those things. I was already, I already eat well, so I don't think that's an issue. She did tell me that if I'm not gluten intolerant, that I don't necessarily need to cut out gluten, which was kind of a relief for me. And so I brought gluten back into my diet. She just said it's important to eat high quality gluten. So, whole wheat and sourdough and things like that. And obviously, like, don't eat 20 pieces of bread a day, obviously. And, she said, obviously, high protein, good amount of fat, like, carbs are good for you. Just make sure it's a good kind in general. And, but that wasn't the emphasis of what she was saying. She did tell me to incorporate a supplement, myo-inositol, back into my diet, which I had done with my dietitian as well. I didn't feel like it really did anything for me. It's supposed to help with insulin levels, but I really didn't think that it helped me that much. So she said, let's try for a couple weeks, and she'll also give me a prescription for metformin, which is a drug that you can take. It's a prescription that helps with insulin. A lot of PCOS girlies take it, insulin resistance girlies. It's for type 2 diabetics, originally created, and it's helpful to regulate your insulin levels. She said, if you want to take it, that's totally fine. Just know that you'll have to take that continuously, then, like, for quote unquote forever. So we agreed that I would wait a couple weeks, try the myo-inositol with everything else, and see how it goes, and then I can make my decision. Also, in this conversation, based on my labs, we also saw that my thyroid wasn't working properly. So what she had me do is go get an ultrasound as well. She needed to make sure that I didn't have like an inflamed thyroid and that it was just underworking, because if it was inflamed, then I would have to get hormones. If it's not inflamed, then I just get supplements. So thank God it wasn't inflamed. So I just have 2 supplements that I'm taking for my thyroid, which is iodine and selenium. And those are just supplements I added basically to my supplement repertoire, and then the myo-inositol. And so I left this conversation, I felt so good. I literally like went home and cried, because I was like, finally someone gave me an answer that I was looking for. And I got home, so I did myo-inositol for a couple weeks, and then I just felt like my blood sugar levels just didn't change. So I just made the decision based on myself and my health that I am going to take metformin, because I think I need it. I believe I need it. I've literally done everything else. Nothing else has really helped me 100%. So I'm going to start taking it. So it's April when I'm recording this, end of April. I started taking it in the middle of February, and I can tell you that the difference is night and day. I don't have blood sugar crashes anymore. I can have something sweet or a coffee without literally dying afterwards from my blood sugar tank. I feel like I can breathe again. Like, I'm going to get emotional talking about this. I feel like this immense weight has been lifted off my shoulders of something that I've been struggling with for the last, I don't know how many years. And finally, I have an answer. Finally, I know what's wrong with me. And it wasn't that I was doing something wrong. I literally did everything I could, still got bullied for it. And now I know that it was never something that I was doing wrong, but that I have something in my body that just doesn't work the way that it should. And I have something now that can help me and that can make sure that it's going to have my body working in the right way. I mean, I feel like a new person in the last 2.5 months. I feel completely renewed. I have so much energy. Probably that's my thyroid working properly. I have so much energy. I've definitely lost weight, although I'm not weighing myself. I just measure myself because I would rather look at it from like a fitness perspective than a weight loss perspective, because that doesn't interest me. It also is not something that aligns with my goals. For me, it's more about how I'm feeling. And obviously, I do think I have excess weight, but it's not about the weight. It's about me feeling strong and healthy. And I definitely have gone down inches in every area of my body that I've been measuring in the last 2 months. I have so much energy. I don't have brain fog. I'm super productive. I'm super creative. I have a new zest for life, which I'm sure has to do with the fact that it's like spring now. But in general, I just feel completely different. I feel like I can breathe again. It feels like an ultimate relief for me, and something that is just like, I just feel like a completely new person. I really do. And, you know, I was never someone that I don't really take medications. And like, I'm not against medications. I just try to find an alternative if I can. And so this is the first medication I've really been taking for like the long term, so to speak. And it was a hard pill to swallow, no pun intended, but my body needed it. That's what my body needed. And if that's what she needs, then I'm going to give her everything that she needs, because I want her to feel good and happy and healthy and joyful. And I want to love my body and take care of her. And this is important for her as well. This is really important for her. So this whole experience just really taught me, like, you really just have to advocate for yourself at the end of the day, which I had to do at so many steps in the way. No one advocated for me. No one advocated for me. I struggled a lot with that I felt like I was alone, that I was advocating for myself, but you have to advocate for yourself. So if you're having health struggles, anything, even if it's anything else in life, like, you need to advocate for yourself. Do the research, spend time doing it. It takes a lot of effort. I know it takes a lot of effort. I've gone through it. I've dealt with it so many times. I didn't know what I was reading, what I was looking at, what the doctors were saying, but I looked into it. I did the research. I took time. I got into, different Facebook groups with information. That's a really good tip for people to get more information. But just follow your instincts, follow your intuition, really focus on you and your health journey, understand how important it is, and you will get to the other side if you do that. You absolutely will get to the other side. It's worth spending time on. It's worth spending energy on. Your health is the thing you can control. Your health is the thing that you have agency over. And if you don't have your health, you won't have the other things at the end of the day. And I'm so glad that I finally got to a place where I feel better. Life just feels brighter. It feels like a light has been turned on inside of me. It feels like I was turned off and now I'm turned on again. And it's just so positive. I'm so happy. I feel so much more joy and contentment. And I wish I didn't have to go through all the struggles, but it was worth going through the struggles to get to the other side. I hope that my journey can help just at least one person. And if you have any other questions about this, please let me know. I would be more than happy to talk more about this if it's something y'all are interested in. I generally am quite open. I just want to make sure, obviously, it's some topics y'all are interested in, but definitely let me know. I appreciate you listening to the end. Appreciate you being here. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.